Shakespeare. We all know this guy, one of the greatest playwrights in history, was the royal playwright, the king himself, as well as being a critic of rulers at the time. Yes, despite being the king's playwright, he still found a multitude of ways to criticize the nobles of Europe. Yet, we are not here to talk about him, rather than one of his own characters, a main character of the Tempest, Prospero. If you don't know, Prospero is the father of Miranda, and the ruler of an island in the middle of the Mediterranean, and the former ruler of the Italian city Milan. In the play, we see just how Prospero acts towards his island subjects, as well as the island refugees, who turns out to be the guys that overthrew him, and his sons. He makes and extends contracts with his island servant, Ariel, while at the same time placing Calvin under slavery, who was the original inhabitant of the island. With one of the king's sons, Ferdinand, he makes him move laws just for interacting with his daughter, and with Alonso and Co., he makes them go through utter hell. This then presents a good question. Is Prospero truly a just ruler? And by just, I don't mean a good ruler. For asking for a good ruler in a Shakespeare play is like asking for H.P. Lovecraft not to make references to his cat. By a just ruler, I mean one who has valid reasons to dish out punishments onto the offenders without any of the punishments being cruel and unfair. For example, George III, everyone's favorite British king, is usually classified as an unjust ruler since he continuously enacted unfair taxes on colonial Americans and got infuriated at them when they started to protest against them. This is what I mean by being an unjust ruler. A just ruler, instead, would be one who follows the principles of Hobbes, while also incorporating some teachings from that of Locke. Hobbes illustrates that humans are in two state of beings in his book, The Leviathan. First is the state of nature, and the other being the state of war, and that a strong centralized state is needed to prevent the freedoms that come with the freedom of nature from being infringed upon. There's also rules that are placed upon both the government and the people, but in order to save time, I'll just put the rules right here. If you want to read through it all, just pause the video here or click the link. Now we apply the Leviathan to Prospero, and here we see Prospero take upon this role as a centralized government. But we don't care about that. We want to know if Prospero's actions are just in terms of Leviathan. And believe it or not, yes, they are. First, let us talk about the most obvious one, Prospero and Alonso and Co. And by following Hobbes' book, we learn that Alonso and Co. are guilty in that they overthrew Prospero from his respective position in Milan. As Hobbes states, the subjects cannot change the foreign government. This is the first rule of the principles of the Commonwealth. And because Alonso and Co. broke this rule, Prospero has every right to enact punishment. This results in making his actions be just against them. Prospero's punishment isn't all that extreme either, as all his punishment is for them to repent what they had done. And if they don't, they'll keep dealing with Ariel's tomfoolery. Then there is how he justly punishes Calvin for violating more than just one rule that Alonso and Co. broke, including some rules from Locke in terms of treatment of property. First, Calvin tried to do something completely messed up to Prospero's daughter Miranda. Because of this, by going off of Hobbes' sections over the main injustices, we see this is considered to be an injury towards Miranda, thus making it just to place him into slavery, alongside making it just to take over the island. A little editor's note here, I'm completely against slavery. This is just for the sake of argument. As, by going off Locke, it is perfectly fine to take another person's property as long as if they weren't using it originally, thus making Prospero's punishment doubly just. Lastly, there is Ariel who signed a contract with Prospero ever since he met him. As we see throughout the play, Prospero keeps extending his indentured servitude contract. And believe it or not, but this is allowed since Hobbes says that a ruler can make these kinds of laws within reason. And Prospero's reason is to give back at those who overthrew him. And what does Ariel gain from following this contract? Freedom, because unlike Calvin, who actually wronged Prospero, Ariel followed Prospero, and because of that, he gained freedom. Therefore, Prospero is in fact a just ruler, where he could have kept extending Ariel's contract without reason, but he did not. And don't try to pull stuff out like the UN saying that the servitude and slavery is not allowed, therefore Prospero is not just. Yeah, and guess what? The UN also stated that you should preserve life and have respect to others, and that you should not overthrow a government unless as a last ditch move, which is something the castigates have done and sometimes the UN doesn't even enforce. Also, you need to realize that this play was written in the 1600s, where slavery and servitude was accepted, as they were usually the punishments that would have been used to criminals. Not only that, you're trying to defend someone who almost violated a possibly underage girl and someone who almost was close to killing their own father. And if you have a rebuttal for that, I have one right here. But So I hope now you understand or agree with me that despite seemingly looking as though he is an unjust tyrant, he is actually a just ruler, for the punishments that he dishes out are only to those who reasonably deserve it, and gift those who don't deserve it, and follows his rule, freedom. It is all supported by Thomas Hobbes of England in his book The Leviathan, alongside some teachings of John Locke on terms of property. Thus, with all this being said, I grant Prospero, the true ruler of Milan and the island of the Mediterranean, the Shakespeare Award of being the most just ruler of all time.
And like the baseless fabric of this vision, the cloud-capped towers, the gorgeous palaces, the solemn temples, the great globe itself, yea, all which it inherit shall dissolve. And like this insubstantial pageant, faded, leave not a rack behind. We are such stuff as dreams are made on, and our little life is rounded with a sleep. Sir, I am vexed